0.
1, 0. And we're off. Hey, everybody, this is Linda West of Living Live with Linda, and I'm so excited to be here today with Nicole Leite. And she has a company called Ambitney. And one of the things that they specialize in is Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics, which, first of all, I never even knew there was such a thing as Adobe Analytics. So I think that's really cool. So I'm going to do a proper introduction here. And that is, Nicole helps small to mid-sized companies make use of their digital analytics data. She is certified with over 10 years experience using Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics. From measurement strategy, ensuring that you are looking at the right metrics for your business, to tool audit, ensuring that the tools are set up and configured correctly and that the tool is accurately implemented on the website, to reporting and analysis, helping companies understand the data so that they can make business decisions based on what the data is telling them. And finally, doing training, educating marketers on how to use Google and Adobe Analytics and how to interpret that data. These are some of the services that she offers. There are many more. She loves educating and empowering her clients to be able to do what she does so that they can do it themselves if they want to. That's the key part, right? If they want to. Yeah. So tell me, Nicole, first of all, how did you get into this type of work?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for having me on here today. I really appreciate that.
Welcome.
So how I got into this really is, it was over 10 years ago. I had a boss come to me. It was when Google purchased Urchin, which is what Google Analytics is the foundation on. And he said, here's Google Analytics. They were a startup company with a social networking type site. They connected athletes with sponsors. And he said, figure it out. And this was, for anyone who's familiar with Google Analytics today, the capabilities today are phenomenal compared to what we had back then. And so I did what he asked, we figured it out. We married a lot of data warehouse data together and tried to tell a story about what the users were doing on the website so we could fix their problems and make things simpler. And eventually Google Analytics wasn't enough for our site, and we had to go bigger to another tool called HBX, which was bought by Omnisure, which was bought by Adobe, and that's where Adobe Analytics, which I'll talk to you a little bit about, came. So by using this other tool that we ended up having to pay for, we were able to track all kinds of activities that we weren't able to with Google at the time. So I just kind of followed my career path that way. After helping this startup get started on this new platform of analytics and helping them with their reporting analysis, I kind of was ready for another challenge. And so I started working for agencies here in San Diego, Red Door, Geary Interactive, and Digitaria. And my career after that, I was ready to go out on my own, and here I am. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. It's funny because, we all take different paths in our lives. Sometimes we think we know where we're going to go, and then we go a totally different route, right?
Right.
Yeah, but it's because you embraced it and you were like, this is cool. This is really what I'm doing. And then you decided to branch out on your own. When did you decide to go out on your own?
Oh, gosh. It's been, I think, 4 years this October.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's been a while. It has.
That is so cool. Now, your company name is, I'm going to put it on the screen, Ambitney. Ambitney.
Yes.
Did I spell it right? I did, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
So where does that come from?
Yeah, so I always think it's really unique when a company has a name that's in another language, and it's usually Latin-based or Greek or something. And my heritage is Polish, and I just thought it'd be interesting to do a spin off of a Polish word. And I really was drawn to Ambitney, and it means ambitious in Polish. And I've always just been a go-getter and, don't stop until I can achieve my goals. And so I just thought it really fit with where I wanted my company to stand for.
It was funny because I saw the name. I was like, wonder what that means, because, a lot of times, like companies like yours, they want to make sure the name is something that people, when they see it, they recognize it, or at least know what it means. So it's like, there's got to be a story, and there is.
Yeah, there's a story.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about the differences of Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics, and why somebody would want to use one or the other or both. Like, how do they work? What does it mean? What are the analytics? Why do we need to look at them? And I'll just share really quickly. I've learned how important it is to look at the numbers. I used to be one of those, like, I don't want to see the numbers. I don't care about that. I just want to do what I do, you know? But I realized quickly how important it is to know your numbers. So why don't you share with us about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned back in the day, Google wasn't that great. Today, Google is phenomenal and it's free. So I talk a lot about, and I promote a lot about Google specifically to small businesses because it is free and it is easy to use. Adobe Analytics is more for a large scale audience who a large-scale company who has a lot of tracking requirements. There may even be integrations with several other services and tools that they want to integrate data from, email marketing, social. It's a way more robust tool, and it does cost money. It costs quite a bit of money, and so that's the biggest difference between Google and Adobe. Google does have some limitations in the sense of being able to segment and break data down, whereas Adobe allows you to slice and dice as many times as you want. So someone who's really doing a lot of deep dive data analysis is probably going to be more prone to using Adobe. But for smaller companies who are, scratching the surface, Google is a really great entry product to use to start beginning to understand website analysis and, really start diving into the data. And, both tools really solve this problem of a couple of things. There's always, campaign attribution, who's driving the most traffic to my site, who's converting, how are they converting, and then there's this user experience and behavior aspect of the analysis. Does this feature impact conversion? Does it not impact conversion? What are the paths that users are taking? Can we identify who these users are based on the paths, based on the actions they take on the website? And so that's really what analytics helps us understand is both the bottom line as well as the user experience and how people are using the website.
So because since Google Analytics is free, and I do have a WordPress site, do I do it as an add-on or whatever to my WordPress site, or how do I get into Google Analytics?
No, that's a great question. And so there's a plugin that I typically recommend with a WordPress website. It's called Monster Insights. You can add it. And then if you don't have a Google Analytics account, you just need a Google account, and then you go to analytics.google.com and you can sign up for an account. And it's really easy for beginners. It gives you a UA code, UA dash, and then a digit, 7 to 8 long digit number, and you just put that into your Monster Insights plugin, and you have data. You can start seeing at the very minimum how much traffic you're getting, where they're coming from, and what content they're seeing. There's so much more you can still get, but that is at a minimum what you can do with that.
Okay, so what can you do with that information? How can you use it? I mean, you can use it to look at it and analyze, but then what are some things that you can do with it once you've now analyzed that data?
Yeah, so what I just specified is really high level, and so there's not much action you can take at that point. You really want to take a step further in setting up your account and creating goals. So goals are desired outcomes that users take on your website. So do they fill out a form? Do they make a purchase on your website? Whatever it is that is your goal, You set those up, and then that's where you can start taking more action on understanding where users are coming to the site. So let's say we are running some paid search ads and we are running some Facebook ads, and we want to know what's more effective. You know, there is data in you have your paid search data and you have your Facebook data, but knowing what the user does once they get to your website is much more impactful than knowing that they clicked on the ad. And so we can see that in Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics, and then we can understand which channel is more effective at driving what our ultimate goal is.
Yeah, knowing what people are, and I know you can tell like how far people have scrolled or like how many seconds they were there before they got out.
Yeah.
And there's so many things to look at, right?
There's so much. And if you have dev support, I mean, you can track anything. So there is some technical requirements if you want to be able to track everything on your site. But before you do that, I always recommend take a step back. What are your goals? What questions do you really want to answer? And then put together a plan, and you can pretty much track anything you want to track on the website. Any button clicks, form downloads, video views, the length of the video being viewed. It's really amazing the capabilities that you can do with both Google and Adobe.
You know, I think one thing that's important to remember too when looking at those numbers is, I remember when I first, I held an event, and the PR person was bringing these numbers, and I was a little bit depressed because there wasn't as much going on as I thought that there was. Right. But what I realized is that's why it's valuable, because if this isn't working, we need to change it up. And so we did. So we looked at the numbers, like, this isn't working. Let's change it up. Let's change our ads. Let's change the way the website looks. So when we bring people there, they actually want to click around. They want to see what's going on. They want to buy tickets. Right. Yeah. So it can be depressing, but get over it.
Well, it's funny. That's actually how I get some projects, is they see no results and they think the analytics is broken. And unfortunately, I have to tell them, sorry, but what you're doing isn't working.
Right. Yeah. And if you don't have experience in that type of work, why are we so hard on ourselves to think that we should be able to do it? We should be able to making all this money off of all this stuff when we don't even know what we're doing. It's kind of funny.
Right.
Yeah. Just because it's easy to do doesn't mean it's easy to master. Right.
Right. That's very true. And I sometimes forget. It's easy to me because I've been doing it for so long, and I sometimes forget some of the very basics, and I learn how much I know by the questions that people ask. And there's just little nuances that, someone wants to know up front certain specific things, like I have a client now that's actually moving from Google to Adobe. And when you make that transition from one tool to the other, they collect data differently. And they process data differently. So you're going to have some different types of results. And so, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't even think to proactively tell someone until I'm there and they're asking the question. I mean, I always say don't compare your numbers to Adobe and Google, but they do, and they still want to know why things aren't matching up. But that's
this is like comparing apples to oranges, right?
That's exactly it is. It is.
They have different ways of operating, just everything's different. So I wanted to cover again. So the name of that plugin was Monster Insights Plugin.
And for WordPress.
For WordPress. And then there was another one you mentioned. What was the other one? Or maybe it wasn't a plugin. Maybe it was something else. I caught you off guard. You should have.
Yeah.
Let's skip it.
Okay.
So let's talk about there are going to be some people out there going to be like, well, what does all this mean? How can I learn a little bit more in depth about what it means? And I know you put on workshops, and do you put on workshops on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I started a monthly workshop just covering different topics on Google Analytics to educate others on how to set up the tool, but also understand the data. And, and I talked about goals and how important it is. I mean, you really want to set up at the bare minimum some goals so you can see which channels are most effective, what landing pages are most effective. And so I go over that. I go over dashboards. For smaller companies, it may not be worth their time to look at reporting on a daily or weekly basis. So I recommend, just set up some dashboards so you're seeing it. So if something doesn't look right, or something's not, you can see that something's not working, you can take action, at least on a monthly basis at a bare minimum. Yeah.
That's cool, because just to learn how to read them is very valuable. I know when if I send my newsletter out, I like to look and see, because it shows like every hour what the spikes are and not. So it gives me an idea of when my audience is looking. Because one thing I've discovered is, well, first of all, my audience is worldwide. And so no time of day is the right time of day, except the time of day that my audience is on.
Right.
So the only way to learn that is to test it and measure it and test it and measure. And that's what Google Analytics gives you ability to do on a larger scale, right?
It really does. Yeah, it does. And it offers real-time data. So if you're, hosting an event kind of like this, you can look at your data real time to see if people are interacting or not. And then you can also, look back week, month, year, and pay attention to the trends as well, So that's really helpful to get an idea and be able to pinpoint when specific activity happens, when those high trend occurs.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love what you do. I'm so glad you decided to take this path, and especially helping the small to mid-sized businesses, because we really do need help. We need help because we're competing. I don't want to say competing, but there's a lot of people have money, and they're going to use it for something that's best for them, best use for them. So sometimes we need to know how we can reach those people. And this is just one of those tools. And I especially love that Google Analytics is free. And like you said, when you're starting, just start with that. Just do it, try it and see how it goes. But Nicole can help you, learn how to read it. And she does a workshop. I put a link to the workshop in the comments below. And then there's the discount for $15 off, Linda17. Make sure you spell it with a Y, because that's my name.
Yeah.
With a Y. And, but this is great. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Just to expand a little bit on analysis and, good ways to get nuggets out of your data is through segmentation. And this is available through all tools.
Through what was it?
Through all tools, both Google, Adobe, and it's called segmentation.
Segmentation, okay.
Yeah, so if, let's say you're running a campaign in a specific market, the performance is going to respond differently in that market than a market where you're not running a campaign. And so by using segmentation, not only can you see if that campaign was effective or not, you can also learn other attributes about that audience to maybe cater future campaigns or the options are so wide here what you could do with segmentation. So it could be campaign specific, it could be user experience specific. If someone interacts with button A and you look at users who interact with button B, is one user group more likely to convert? If they are, how do we capitalize on that and expand that experience for our entire audience? Or is there something that we learn about that audience that we need to make sure we focus them down a specific path? So there's so much to be learned from the data within Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics. So.
And that's a good point. Segmentation, I just kind of recently grasped the concept of the segmentations. And it is important to know, so when you talk about segmenting and you talk about different markets, it's very broad or narrow, and it's as narrow as you take it. So like I like to talk to my clients about, figuring out their target market is actually just one person. So you figure out that person lives in San Diego, that person is 35 years old, it's a woman, she has 2 kids, one's a boy, one's a girl, she reads People magazine, she watches HBO, she get very, very, very detailed into who she is. And then when you're segmenting, you can segment out that person, that target, because there's a lot of 35-year-old single women who have 2 kids who, that's the thing, is a lot of times people think that they're potentially losing some market by narrowing their market, but actually what you're doing is you're gaining market because you're being very concentrated and talking to that one person, right?
Very targeted. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I am offering free tips every month with Google Analytics. If people want to sign up for my newsletter, there is that opportunity. So,
and is that on your website?
That is on my website.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so go check it out, you guys. Sign up for her newsletter. She's just full of information, and check out her workshops. It's really going to be helpful for you to be able to measure your business, because the only way it's really going to grow is if you're looking at it and you're looking at it with realistic eyes instead of like me, all dewy-eyed, like I did for so long. I was like, the saying is ignorance is bliss. And you know what? Ignorance is bliss if you're not worried about growing a business, because it's not bliss when you're trying to grow a business,
That's right.
Yeah. So check her out, Nicole. I want to thank you so much for being here today. And
thank you.
Google Analytics, I know it's really important, and it's probably something like I want to actually stay away from, but I know I need to get near it.
No problem. I hope to hear from anyone. And thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome. And you have an amazing day. I'm going to go to your website right now and download the newsletter, or sign up for the newsletter right now.
Awesome.
And you can check Google Analytics on that.
Yeah, exactly. I will.
You have a great day.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.